Record. Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So yeah, my name is Rebecca, originally from Canada, but moved over to the UK via India. And yeah, just excited to talk with you.
So that is, I have not heard that before. So can you explain?
Yes, so I always get this question in interviews of like, why did you move to India? And the truth is, I was 21. I wanted an adventure. So I got a job working for a consulting firm in India, like a global consulting firm out of India. And then after working there for a couple of years, they moved me to the UK so I could work closer to the people that I was working with.
Which part of India were you in?
Delhi.
Delhi. Oh, so maybe this question would be useful then. क्या आपको हिंदी आती है?
मैं हिंदी सीख रही हूँ.
Yeah, I used to have a website called ispeakhindi.com. It was a daily learn Hindi webcast.
Oh, cool.
My wife is Indian and my in-laws live with me, and my mother-in-law was a Hindi teacher. But
I was going to ask why you spoke Hindi.
I like to tell people that the site was supposed to be called I really want to learn to speak Hindi, but can't. But I shortened it to just I speak Hindi.
It's such a difficult language because I lived there for 2 years. I dated an Indian guy. So like when we hung out with his friends, I mean, they spoke English, but like I would be the only non-Indian there. So they'd sort of slip into Hindi. And by the end, I like could basically understand what they were saying. But my Hindi is like, can argue with rickshaw drivers, can, you know, pass as not 100% a tourist in a market kind of Hindi.
No, I totally understand. It's what you might call functional Hindi or practical Hindi.
Yeah, I mean, I can't ask for the toilet, but I can just be like, toilet, and hope that people understand.
That way. Yeah, I got it. Well, that's wonderful. Well, I'd like to talk to you about a trip of a different kind.
Go on.
So did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts back to the moon again for the first time since 1972?
Only because you have told me that in the
past. I have heard that a lot.
I feel like you're NASA's best PR person.
Yeah, you know, it's really funny. They do a lot of work on PR, you know, weekly like webcasts and podcasts and press releases and stuff. But I think one thing I've really hit home with this project is how we all live in like different bubbles. And so like, if you're in the space bubble, you're being bombarded with this. But if you're outside the space bubble, you'll never, ever see anything.
I think it's like one of the joys and problems with, you know, the social media, choose your own content kind of world we live in. Like we're not getting ads on TV anymore. So there isn't really a ubiquitous way that anyone can be like, hey, by the way, here you go.
Yeah, and you don't really watch, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't watch the news on TV either. You know, I generally look at news.google.com or maybe read The Economist occasionally.
I tried, to be honest, I tried during the pandemic, and it like genuinely, I'd go to bed terrified and I couldn't sleep. So I stopped watching the news. I still like read the news online, and like I have a daily brief that I listen to and stuff like that. But like before I went to bed, I couldn't sit there listening to like, and the number of COVID cases has gone up by 75%. And I was like, well, we're all going to die. Thanks, guys. Good.
You know, that's really turned society into the battle of the bubbles, you know, where whoever has the biggest bubble wins.
Yeah, basically.
And the rest of the people think those people are stupid.
And have never heard of anything in their bubble. Have no idea.
You're like, I have no idea why you think that, you know.
But you're in the NASA space bubble.
I am. for better or worse. I well, okay. Since you're visiting me in my bubble, uh, what do you think about it?
Cool. I was going to say I read an article recently, but I tried to read an article and instead listen to a podcast by it's the British Royal scientist, something like that, astronomer, whatever he is. And he said, let's leave space exploration up to the robots. And I, to a certain degree, I think I kind of agree with that, because humans can only go so far. So while it's really cool to go to space, and I would love to go to space, in terms of like understanding the universe and I guess our place in it, the fact that going to the moon is such a difficult, big task kind of means if we leave it up to humans to do that, we're not really going to get anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, the argument for using robots is pretty strong, right? I mean, they don't require sleep, they don't require oxygen. If they get destroyed, there's no sadness. I mean, they're they don't have any children.
It's not like yet. A moral dilemma if like you send, the satellite falling into Neptune or wherever it's going.
I know. It's like, should we send it in the crater? What if we can't get it back out? Like, well, we'll build another robot.
We'll learn from that experience.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on what the goal is, though, because if the goal is like we're destroying our planet and sort of interstellar styles, we need to leave and find somewhere else to live, then it's super valuable to like see what we can do with people up in space.
Well, I mean, the one thing about that, though, is that regardless of how bad we mess up the Earth, it will still be 100 times better than any other place in the solar system.
There is nowhere else. This is the thing.
Yeah, it would be better to colonize the Earth using whatever technology we're planning to use for these other planets. And you don't have the transportation issue. They're like, oh, the people are already here. It's like, move in. Yeah.
I'll go underground.
Yeah. Well, I've been kind of wrestling with this too. And I've been thinking, there's one thing you get from people that you can't get from robots. And the best experience on Earth that I could think about is like whenever you go on a trip someplace and you see a really tall mountain, and then you're like, whoa, this is a really and then you take a picture of yourself in front of that really tall mountain, and then you show that picture to somebody else, and they're like, "Okay."
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Because if you listen to the Apollo 8 astronauts, which were the first astronauts to go around the moon, the most surprising thing for them was to see the Earth. Like, oh my gosh, we live in a bubble. And this is even before the internet.
The original bubble.
The original bubble. And I think there might be some value in having humans have that perspective. That like not just, oh, we live on a globe, but just like,
I think the inherent problem with that, though, is there are so few humans that can do it. It's like, as you say, like with travel, like I clearly am a big proponent of travel. I think it widens people's horizons and makes you more receptive and interesting and less prejudice and all kinds of good things. And a lot of people can travel. I know not everyone can travel. I know it is a privilege. But even just like leaving your hometown and going to the next town over opens you up a bit more. Whereas inherently with space, it is a very select group of people who tend to be privileged because of the experience, the skills that they need, and now potentially billionaires. So I totally see the point of being able to send people up there to sort of get that perspective and to sort of humanize things and have the emotional connection. But I think because so few people can go, unless we're commercializing it a bit more, I think it's still, I think my stand is sort of leave human space travel to more of a commercial endeavor, because it would allow for more people to go eventually, like with planes, they started out as being for the rich and then sort of eventually got cheap enough. But leave the scientific things to the robots. I'm clearly pro-robot too, so.
And plus they don't get distracted. You know, they're not like, "Ooh, what's that shiny thing?"
Yeah, I did read once that whenever they schedule a spacewalk, they literally have to schedule like 5-10 minutes of the astronaut just standing outside being like, holy crap, oh my gosh. So, inefficiencies.
Of course, some would argue that would be actually the point of putting a human in that position, is for the, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Where do you see humanity in 200 years from now?
Oh gosh, no, that's a very difficult question. Well, assuming like we're all still alive, I guess we're still here. I don't know. That's a really good question. I do wonder if, with the robots taking over and everything, if we'd be in almost an enlightened period again, sort of like the Renaissance, but again, because if robots are doing a lot of the work, then we have to find another way to pay everyone, and therefore something like universal income will have to be a thing for everybody. And so then fewer people will be working jobs because they need the money. And so you get more sort of intellectuals and more artists and more interesting things. Maybe that's my dream. Maybe that's what I'm hoping the world comes to. And it's a very optimistic, positive dream.
I know. I would love to think that if you freed up people's time and freed them up from basic needs, that you would have such a thing. But my biggest concern is that we just have a lot more couch potatoes.
It could be like WALL-E.
Yes, I think WALL-E is what would happen. Those were people on universal basic income. WALL-E.
That's true. But I still see my plan is just really positive.
I like your plan. But it's like,
might be a bit Pollyann.
But no, I think kids start out that way, and then we kind of beat it out of them through formal education and through external controls, and then we wonder what happened to it. It's kind of my theory.
Yeah, that's true. We'd need to aggressively change the education system to bring back or encourage creativity and creative thinking and curiosity a lot more. Because for me, that's what science is all about as well, is just being very curious about everything and approaching it in a really logical sort of thought out way. But it's the curiosity that you need, which, yeah, I agree. The education system, none of the education systems that I am aware of, at least in any of the countries that I have lived in, encourage that kind of thinking.
Yeah. I mean, you need people to get so absorbed about a problem or a question that they can't go to sleep, and they're working on it. They forget to eat and stuff like that. You don't really see that as a normal thing that happens.
I mean, I'm glad that it's not encouraged to forget to eat.
Well, that's true.
This is not a problem I have ever had. Sometimes I don't eat because I'm really into something, but it's not that I forget. I'm aware that I haven't eaten. I just keep going.
Well, if it were safe and affordable, would you take a trip to space?
100%. I would love that. I think that would be so cool. if nothing else, to prove flat earthers wrong.
Well, now I figure flat earthers are people who really want to go to space, but don't think they'll ever be able to afford it. So they're trying to annoy people who couldn't pay their way enough. So I'm on to them.
They don't actually believe it. They're just like cognitive dissonance, like trying to sort it out for themselves.
Well, no. There's like, we got to annoy like Jeff Bezos enough so he'll send us on his rocket. That's like the goal.
Okay. Yeah. It's like reverse psychology then.
Exactly, reverse psychology.
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah. The Earth is flat. Well, I don't think it's flat. Let me show you. Well, if you insist.
Okay. I'll go to space.
I don't think I can really see it from that altitude, though. I think I might need to go further. It still looks kind of flat.
You need to go all the way around just to prove it. Yeah.
The one thing, I have talked to a flat earther actually, and the one thing that I forgot to ask him about was, well, how does he explain Magellan's voyage? Like just something basic like that.
Just skirted around the outside. Just. Oh man.
Okay.
So good.
let's say that you or your descendants end up going to Mars and living on a colony there, and several generations later, your great granddaughter is on Mars. She's grown up on Mars her entire life. She's now in like high school, at least that's what we would call it, but like 11th standard or something, 10th standard, and she's in history class. And they're doing a project on the 2020s. And she comes across this. She comes across this video. What would you like for her to put in her paper about this time?
About the time. I mean, you know what? It's so difficult right now because you've just come through a pandemic and there's currently a war in Ukraine. So I was gonna say something about like, despite everything that we're going through, like we're still sort of working through it, and we're like, tenaciously like coming together, and the vaccines came out really quickly, and the Ukrainians are really tough, and I feel like a lot of people are like, getting behind them and that sort of thing. But just looking at like the decades so far, I think she'd be like, what on earth was going on?
I know we might look at the 1920s and kind of like what happened then, or like it started out good, but it sure didn't end up so well.
It just didn't go. It just didn't work out. Yeah. Except I'm hoping like it didn't start out great, but then like ended up good. I'm really trying to be optimistic about everything right now.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. I know we talked about a lot of things. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about, or any questions you had for me?
No, just congrats. And this was really fun. Thank you so much for including me.
Thank you for participating, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.